Okay, I have it cut out, and you can see when we sew it, it's going to line up on the sides to match the front and back. Now, when I originally decided to make these videos, I had planned on making one chair cover and some pillows. Well, I was not happy with the way the chair cover turned out. I thought I could do better. So I decided to make another video making it different. So I came up short on fabric. Okay, so I had to piece this together. Now, it's pretty close, as you can see, but I had to piece it together. And that's the problem with pattern repeats, and if you don't cut them out properly. Like I said, I'd already cut on this, so I didn't have much choice. But it worked out okay. Anyway, if you're a beginner, don't use pattern repeats. So we have the front and back cut out. Now, if you're working with regular fabric where you don't have to worry about a repeat, instead of cutting it out the way I did here, all in one piece, you can either do it that way or have it on the fold like we did the first cut. Basically, you want to cut two of the first cut that we cut. That is the front and the back. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is cut out the lining. Okay, you can see here where I cut two out. I cut one the first time and cut it out, and then I laid it over the top and cut the other. So there's two pieces here that have a fold. And if you can see, here's one fold, there's two folds. But you don't cut them two out at the same time. You do one and then the other. But I just laid it on top of there to show you what it looked like. Okay, what you have is two or one front and one back of fabric, one front and one back of lining. Okay, so we are going to set this aside, and then we're going to cut out a piece. I decided to use muslin, and I'm cutting out a piece 11 by 24. And I'm going on this one to cut out two of them. Now I already have this laid out. I just need to cut through here. So this is going to be our panel for our lettering. And I am going to double it because it's kind of thin. So, and then I'm going to cut a piece of interfacing because it's really easy to hem them that way. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. But we need to get the fabric stamped so it'll be drying while we're sewing the other parts, and then maybe it'll be dry and we can finish it. Okay, now you want to mark the center of your lettering fabric. So here's center. I marked it. Now I've already set up my block with the lettering on it. And I'm going to paint this with that paint. I'm just using the spout of the paint and painting on here and just trying not to get too much paint on there. After a few stampings on a practice piece, I did it on the fabric that I'm going to use, and the important thing that I learned on this is I've never done stamping before. But on the smaller letters, you have to be very careful not to get too much paint on there. Okay, we have it on there, and it turned out fairly nice. The smaller letters are harder to apply, and they're also harder to clean. So as soon as you're finished stamping, clean them immediately. So now we're going to set this aside and let it dry, and we're going to start sewing the chair topper together. We're going to start with the lining and sew it, measure it to the chair, and then we'll sew the chair topper itself. Okay, you can see here where the chair cover lining fits the chair fairly good. So what we're going to do is, on the first one that I made out of burlap, and it was very ravelly. So I had you sew it differently. But this one, it is not ravelly, so we are going back and tear all of this out here. From, we're going to tear it out from here at the end where the corner is all the way across the top. Now the only reason I had you sew this, and you want to sew it on a large stitch, the only reason I had you sew it that way is so you can fit it to the chair and make sure the pattern's going to fit. So now we're going to tear that out, and I'll show you how to, or we're going to sew the fabric chair topper, the real deal, and we're going to pin it and then sew it, but we're going to pin the lining to it. So we want to leave the side seams on and tear out the top, basically. I'll show you how to do that. Okay, this is a correction on the video on once you cut it out, be sure and mark on your fabric an opening for the sash. So you mark on there how, you have to decide how big you want yours. So I'm just adding this in here, and when we put these pieces together, all of the lining and the fabric, when we sew at the machine, we sew from here to here, leave this open, and sew from here to here on all 4 pieces when we sew it. But before we sew it, we have to put that sash in here, and you want it in between the right sides of the fabric. So you open the opening till you find the separation between the right sides, and you stick it in this way toward the back center of your chair cover. And then and the edge is right here, and so when you sew when it's turned, when you sew down through here, it's on the right side. So I just wanted to make that clear. I hope you understand that. Okay, you can see how I sewed it. Now I'm going to turn it. Okay, now we have the lining sewed. We have the lining, this part ripped out, and this is sewed all the way down to here, and the fabric itself is sewed from there down to here. So I am going to put the lining and the fabric together, and then we'll sew the top. Okay, I forgot to mention we're going to press the seams, and then we'll put it together. Okay, we have our seams pressed, and I want to show you here how this line matches up on each side. And that's what I'm saying, pattern repeats, that you really need to match them up or they don't look right. So I have the seams pressed, and now we're going to show you how to put the lining in here. Okay, what you want to do here is slip these together like a pillow in a pillowcase. And what you want is the wrong side of the lining to the wrong side of the fabric. And you pin these 2 seams together. And then you come up to the top, and we'll work on that in a minute, but I wanted to show you how this is the wrong side and this is the wrong side, and put wrong side seams together. Okay, we have the pieces all laid out kind of flat, and they're together. This part, of course, is not sewn yet. I'll show you that in a second here. And see how the 2 pieces fit very nicely together. Now it's very important when you sew these to make the side seams exactly the same on the fabric and the lining. So when you sew the lining, make sure you sew the fabric the same width. So anyway, now we're going to pin the top in up here, and we're almost done. Okay, now I want to show you something. We have all the layers together, the lining and the fabric. And right here is a little tricky. What we're going to do is we're going to sew like this and come down like this and kind of taper it just right. Let's do this again. We're going to come through here